Welcome to the Hope on the Hard Road podcast, where you and your family can find community, find encouragement, and find hope for the road ahead. Speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so that you will all be together in this. 1 Thessalonians 5:11.
Before we get started today, we wanted to take a minute to share about our Dad's Day Out event coming this June 8th. We're heading down to San Diego for a Padre game with lots of food and fun with the guys. To register, go to our website or be watching our social media for the link. Hope to see you there. I'm so excited to have David Robbins on the podcast today. David joins us as we are continuing in our Dad series. David is the dad of 4 children. His oldest son, Ford, has cystic fibrosis, so he understands the challenges of raising a child with special needs. David is married to his wife, Meg, and together they lead FamilyLife, where David is the CEO and president. David has a wealth of knowledge in ministering to dads and husbands. Today is the first of a 2-part series with David. Let's get started. Well, hi, David. Thank you so much for coming on today. Really excited to share your insight with all you do with dads and families, and really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Eric. It is so fun to be on with you guys. Love what y'all are doing. Grateful to get to join.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, your wife, and, your kids?
Yeah. So my wife is Meg. We've been married for 21 years and we have 4 kids ranging 17 to 7. And we've been in ministry for all of our married years. We've bounced around Western Europe, Southeast region, working with college students up to New York City, launching something with Crew to post-grads and had a blast there. But we're now with FamilyLife, and I've served as the president and CEO of FamilyLife. But yeah, most importantly is my wife and kids, and my kid's 17-year-old is Ford, and he's actually our special needs kid who has cystic fibrosis. Our only girl's 15, a 13-year-old 8th grader in the middle school. And then we had a little gap. We moved to New York, wondered if we would add another, and then we crammed in a 4th kid in our 900 square foot apartment there. And we have a 7-year-old now. He's in 2nd grade.
Oh, wow. That's great. You mentioned your oldest son. How has raising a child with special needs really affected you as a dad? And then, with having 3 other kids as well. So,
yeah, I mean, there's the first thing that comes to my mind is just a zoop moment of thinking back when we found out of the possibility of him having this genetic disease when he was in the womb, and Meg and I had driven separately to that appointment, getting in the car by ourselves. And Meg had a pretty immediate moment with the Lord of just really the Holy Spirit quoting scripture, like, I do not make a mistake, in Psalm 139, just like flooding into her mind, that we are every human's fearfully and wonderfully made. And then for me, a few days later, it was like this major moment of there is no shortened life. There's no such thing. In this psalm rushing in, if he numbers all of our days. And so even you asked that question, it's just funny. Like I go right back to the beginning of finding out, and God keeps shaping me every day of having a special needs kid and how it affects me as a dad and how I view all my kids. And so I can go broader than that, but I just go, it's shaped me from day one. And I'm so grateful. Like, there are hard things about it. It has meant different things and through different seasons, but more than anything, Ford being born with cystic fibrosis, and then my daughter, who doesn't have an ongoing disease, but anyway, it was like a split placenta in the womb, horrible situation, bed rest forever. It was during that time I was like, Lord, I'm not enough. Like I have to declare need. And so that's the biggest way it shaped me as a dad, is just going, I am not sufficiently good, wise, or gifted enough to make this work. And let's just say I am an achiever. I'm a leader. I love going for it. And just from those early days, the Lord just helping me embrace declaring need, of other dads, of other families, of neighbors, but also just owning up to my own mistakes with my kids and laughing often when we fumble, and really enjoying when we get to keep journeying with all that comes with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And I really appreciate that. I think, the humility of that it kind of brings going through situations and realizing, being okay with saying that's not enough. That's actually how God created us, to not be enough, to be humble enough to say that we need him, in order to raise our family. And then also, moving in and we need other people to walk with us.
Yeah.
We're talking with a lot of dads on this journey. What advice would you have for those dads about connecting with others, and then making sure that they're not isolated along this journey?
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of research out there, and articles have been written in all sorts of publications around the isolation men experience, period, from 35 to 50. And like it being, there's all sorts of epidemic around loneliness that gets talked about. But when you zero in on the data around men, and then so you double click into that of anyone that adds additional complexity in their journey. And special needs families, it can often take more time. For as a dad, you do enter seasons of crises, and where like you do literally kind of get shut off from the world sometimes. Like we all know, for those of us who are in this journey, know those seasons that happen. But I would just say the isolation is where the enemy wants you. And it will lead to despair. Like his desire is to kill, steal, and destroy. And if we are not declaring need, if we are not moving toward others, and the fact is that we all have to learn, I think we just have to initiate it. We want others to notice and to come around us, and we have to declare for help. Um, it's just one of those things that I have embraced wholeheartedly. It's like, I will remain in isolation if I don't declare my needs and ask for help. And so I've just gotten really comfortable going, if dependence is the goal in life, if dependence upon the Lord and the Holy Spirit, then weakness is actually an advantage. As Paul says in 2 Corinthians, his power is made perfect in our weakness. His grace is sufficient. And so I would just overflow that to other people and initiate declaring need. I don't ever want to be a needy person and whiny. And I don't think, if we don't veer toward that, we veer toward holding it all on our own shoulders, carrying the world, keeping it going. And often as men, it just gets easier executing it all, making it work, like making sure all the things get done. And we desperately need people that we can declare help to. Hey, I need to connect. I need to connect this week. And people that you can actually, and I would just double down one more step, that you can actually talk about not just what you're thinking, but what's going on in your emotional tank, in your soul, what you are feeling, and how those two connect, our soul and our emotions. We just end up holding it all in, and I think can really integrated and disconnected from ourselves, from friends, and the people in our own home. We can just start functioning, and I think that's the biggest danger. And so initiating declaring need would be the biggest thing I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. The difference between declaring need and being needy, like that, saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
we're meant to be connected with each other. We're meant to lean on each other a little bit, and have people, walk through life with." That's really huge. In your role as CEO of FamilyLife, I know one of the huge focuses, obviously, is marriages. What advice would you have for husbands out there, that are listening right now, in strengthening their marriage, walking through this where there's so much challenge?
Yeah.
What would you have them know?
Yeah. I would say first, you're the only one that can walk with God for you. So take time to walk with God. I know there's much to do. You're the only one that can be the husband to your wife. You're the only one that can be dad to your kids. Literally everything else on planet Earth, pretty much. Any role you have, me being, president of FamilyLife, it can be done by someone else and will be done by someone else at some point in history,
Mhm.
And I have that. I have a shortened version of that and framed by my bedside. And we do need to keep life going and not make, you know, we got to keep purpose and pursuing things. So I'm not saying shut down everything else you got going on in your world. No, but I am saying it's that perspective of, okay, you're the only husband to your wife, and that relationship. And I'm sure Eric, y'all talk, there's lots of data out there and you can pass it on again in this moment if you want to, around special needs and the realities of how that isolates a husband and a wife. And so, I would just calendar companionship. I think one of the things Meg and I have to learn over and over is just like we stop having fun together. And so we actually have to calendar having fun together.
Mm.
And fun's not the only category, but when you're in the throes, like taking time and space to laugh, to enjoy, to be companions, like if you don't till that soil, it will dry up. And you're going to keep functioning the ways you needed to for your kids, but yet your kids need you thriving together, staying a team, and enjoying one another. And the pressures, I mean, you add special needs into the equation of the currents of life that drift us apart toward isolation. And the currents are strong. If you're in an ocean and the kids are boogie boarding, how many of us as parents have yelled out, hey, you got to come back to the umbrella, come back. You've made it 100 yards. And we're yelling like, and come on the sand, get on the sand. Like, don't try to fight the current. There's no way. So we have to get out on the sand ourselves and walk back to home base. All right, who do we want to be again? All right, and how far drifting are we going to get apart? And the currents will drift us apart. And so, calendar companionship, in whatever way that looks for you, it can different personalities can look different ways. Every husband can go home right now, this whenever you're listening to this, the next time you talk to your wife and go, hey, I just want to have a little fun. Like let's take out the next 90 days. How can we calendar a weekly and a monthly check-in? It can be short, it can be big. And then I would say annually, get away, get on the sand, get on the dry land, out of the currents. If you have any way to have any care for your kids where you can get away, just the two of you. I know that sounds token from a marriage and family guy. It's just a fact that you get out of the currents of life and things get clear. You talk about things you need to talk about. It's why we love Weekends to Remember. One of the things we do at Family Life. It's just one of those places where we set up conversation for people to talk about things that they wouldn't normally talk about. And you get out of the current and just like fruit happens because a husband and wife are looking each other in the eyes, talking about things that and they're laughing and they're talking about things they need to talk about. And we just enter into that function. And when we're in the currents, and man, Meg and I have had multiple seasons, but I would say two significant ones in the last 5 years where it's just like, man, we have drifted apart. The wedge is there. And without that intentionality and, simple calendaring companionship to, hey, let's go get away for a week. Let's go get help from, let's go spend time with a couple who knows our story and knows us well. Without that, it's like we'd still be functioning. We're committed to each other, but but our kids wouldn't be getting what they need from us, and we wouldn't be enjoying it. So
yeah, it's great advice. It is really one of the challenges I know with a lot of the dads that I work with is that how do you get that? How do you, ideally, yeah, everybody would love a week away. We waited 25 years to actually have that happen with our daughter, with the journey of it. But certainly I also love the idea of fun, because so much of this journey is about, teamwork and putting together and how do we get all the tasks done. But when it's just the two of you and what started it all and focusing on, the fun aspect and who's this person that you married and getting back to the root of that's when the marriage becomes alive again. And certainly I know you guys focus on that with your marriage retreats and things like that. And that's huge.
Yeah. Hey, one thing there, Eric, I love you pointed out on, because there are some realities, and we've had those seasons where, there's just not help that can maintain the significance of some of the special needs that's going on, or it's too overwhelming for some to maintain multiple days. If you're in a situation where they do go to any type of care or school. We've had seasons where, all right, we're going to just go downtown to one of the nicest hotels and, go to the spa, buy a room for the day, like 6 hours during the day while kids are at school, like injecting time together that it's not even, I mean, sure, intimacy can be great in that space. It's really about the emotional connection where you're banking in your own memories where like, okay, it's about us again and us fortifying and our values being together so that we can go and continue to bring the care in the four walls of our own home that we want. And if we don't cultivate it, you get creative in whatever way that's needed. And that's one thing we've done in those seasons where you can't get away overnight. It's just not a reality. That's one example. And, maybe that's just getting out of your routine and taking an hour walk in a different part of, a different park than you normally go to that just gets your eyes lifted somewhere else. We can go ahead and get more and more practical about things that cost less money because that's a reality too for a lot of people. But I just think us as men and husbands initiating and injecting, even if it's an hour, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's go to this other park across town to go for a walk. That may sound random, yet it is often the type of intentionality our spouses are longing for. Just go, okay, you got me out of the current for an hour. What is this? Who are you? I'm the same person, yet, okay, but I'm being intentional in a way that's really small, but it is we don't even have to accomplish anything. We don't have to do a big values exercise. Meg and I are really big about getting away and doing value exercises. No, just go talk, have fun. Those deposits can be just as fuel injecting as really intentional retreats like a week to remember or getting away for a values exercise or something.
Yeah, you just mentioned something that kind of like reminded me. I actually gave this advice the other day. In these seasons, you can't necessarily find the right person to spend the night so that you can actually get away, or maybe even date nights are realistic, but taking a day off work, you mentioned ultimately all those other jobs can be replaced. You can be replaced. You can't be replaced as who you are as a father and who you are as a husband. And taking a day and man, that's just breathed life into us that we take a day now, no kids around. Because when the kids are around, the focus is being channeled in many different directions. When it's just the two of you and you can actually have a date where there is no other distractions, how much value that puts into your marriage, how much that can sustain during those hard seasons, and then hopefully later on that you find the respite type cares that you can go and do more extended things, days away, weeks away, whatever it might, weeks away, probably not, but
right. I'm still waiting on that one.
Extended time away that those things can be done. And then, definitely focusing on marriage. Cause it is hard. I mean, it is, definitely this journey presents a lot of challenges. And probably leading into that with the challenges, one of the things, hearing you and your wife speak, the aspect of you guys working together as a team, both on the mission field, and obviously you're still on the mission field back here with Family Life. Talk about how you guys worked your roles in terms of being a team together for your family and then for the cause that you guys are doing.
Yeah. I mean, a huge exercise that I mentioned it's we call it a values exercise. There's no formal thing. We've typed it up because a lot of people they see it as valuable, and so it's a one sheeter, easy thing to do. It's so easy to do, but it has shaped next seasons of life. And so one of the things that's great about it is that couples can get away and go, all right, we're the team. We're Team Robbins, here we go. And what is our team about in this next season? And for some of you, your next season is 6 months. You're in crisis and you're mapping out the next 6 months. For some of you, it's, okay, wow, my kids just got through with elementary and they're approaching that, or my oldest is, and wow, we are about to enter middle school and high school. And, there's this new reality coming in. And now I'm looking at the next 5 to 7 years. If you're newlyweds, you're probably looking at the next 1 to 2 years. All that to say, we get away. What's this season? Like, what is God asking us to bring before him? We get time apart and we just list off values, priorities, desires that God's been speaking, and we just make space to listen to it again for ourselves and to name it, not just like have it churning inside and what if and oh my, but like name them on paper personally. And then we rank those values personally, and then we come together and we speak in each other's life. Now, why is that one so low? And don't you think, I mean, that's who you are. Why do you doubt that about yourself? Or why is that so high and interesting? Tell me more. Does it need to be that high? And so you're just speaking grace and truth in each other's life. And then ultimately, as you could probably predict, you're just coming together with shared values. Okay, here's Team Robbins values. And it's great to have a family mission statement and things you keep coming back to. All I know is life, especially with special needs, kids and families, like it changes, and any rule of life that you had in place, like it's up in the air and you got to readapt to it. That's been a way that we're like, all right, God keeps growing us and he keeps bringing in different experiences and different stages of life. Lord, you're still embedding your Ephesians 2:10, preparing in advance the things that we, the good works that we can walk into. He knows our stories. He's the one writing them, and we get to walk into the stories he's writing. We didn't even know parts of our story 10 years ago that are now significant parts of our journey and story. And so getting away, and we only do this like every 3 to 5 years, it'll just kind of bubble up. Like, I think we need to do the values thing again. Or you may enter a crisis and go, wait, we need to pull away and really walk through this with intentionality. It's been so helpful. And we end up putting whatever we come up with as our joint values in a Ziploc bag in the shower and start praying over it. It usually doesn't. Going home, I remember the one where I was like, I know what it is. Like we were living in Atlanta. It was time to kind of, our kids were entering school. Like we had a kindergartner where we were going to have a pre-K soon. And I was driving home from that values process going, okay, Lord, I think you're going to ask us to adopt another kid with cystic fibrosis, and we're going to move to like downtown Atlanta. I had no clue that as we put that in a Ziploc bag on our shower, well, adoption wasn't actually part of our story. Even though with every CF center we've ever been at, we're like, hey, if you ever need it, let us know. And we moved to New York City. Like, it was amazing what began to unfold. And it doesn't always, that's like one radical example of it leading to a crazy change. But each time we start praying together, and we start talking about the things that the Lord's prompting as we pray. And it leads toward an usness, a team us that helps us be in it together. And there's different seasons where my gifts shine sometimes, and then hers shine. And how do we make space for those two things together?
Yeah, really like that. It's the busyness of life. It's hard to remember just to get right back to that idea of praying together. And when you are praying together, focus in on then who you guys are as a couple, and praying about the same things and looking at the heart and sharing those things. And something you just mentioned too is like, putting those values, putting all those goals and things and then laying it before God. So often we have this idea of where God's taken us, and then you look back and you're like, that's not where he was going. I like what you said is he's writing a story. He already knows the story, and we're basically live in the story that he's writing for us. So
we live out these cycles, I think, of like God is conceiving something starts stirring within us, and it's connected to our story, like you said, that he's been writing, but there's something new about to be birthed. And that waiting season, or for some, it could be a wilderness. I hate waiting. So for me, it often feels like a wilderness, but it's a conceiving time where, all right, a new chapter is going to get birthed, and we want to walk faithfully into it. And I can imagine some of you are just like, wait, I am hanging on by a thread. I don't have time for that. And I can say it can look as simple as, okay, you got time for a meal with your spouse, and to go, hey, what's 3 things we want to pray about most in this next chapter? Like, all I can look at is the next year. Like I'm up to here, or maybe it's the next 3 months, Hey, I just want to pray together intentionally about what God's stirring in us. What's he stirring in you? Let's each come up with one thing, and let's don't act on it. Let's just pray on it. And it's amazing how God will use those small things to start conceiving more and to birth something beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's just a vision of hope, which is, what we're all about, looking forward and so forth, like dreaming, what would God be doing next in our lives, and not thinking of things as impossible, but knowing, all things are possible with God where he's leading.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Join us back here next time as we continue our discussion with David Robbins.
Resources and contact information for today's podcast will be included in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share us with others and be sure to follow us so you won't miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment or rating and connect with us on social media or on our website at hopeonthehardroad.org.